Assalamu alaikum and welcome. This is Aisha Al-Hajar from AMANI Birth, and this is Amani in the Gambia, Saving Lives Today series. I'm here with Sister Salama Karama, and Salama is one of the AMANI Birth teachers and doulas, and she has a deep interest for doing work in the Gambia, and we're here to support her with that. How are you today, Salama?
Alhamdulillah, well, Aisha, thank you. So today's topic, we're going to step back and kind of revisit fetal position. We talked about mom's position during birth and labor, but we didn't talk about the baby's position. I don't think a lot of people focus on the baby's position in utero. So I wanted to know, like, what is the significance? Like, how can moms help their babies get into the right position?
Right. Well, first of all, I just want to say, we talk about fetal positions, fetal meaning the position of the baby, as you said, because the baby in the uterus is called a fetus. So fetal position refers to the baby's position. And I think that most people think about, is it head up or head down, right? And that's important, right? So we want, obviously, a baby to be head down, and some babies will be in the butt down position, or they might lie sideways across the womb. So we'll start with that. Let's bring Brother Snakeba in, though, because he just joined us. Hold on one second. Like, Brother Snakeba, how are you?
Yes, very good.
Welcome.
Alhamdulillah.
So today we're talking about the baby's position inside mommy's tummy.
You
want to translate that?
Okay, assalamu alaikum. Baringulu. Coming for ako ti diamu kinamina wale mu dinengo taranya ba makono.
All right. And of course, first thing we want to say is that we want a baby that's head down, right? Head down is important.
Ako min kukola wala ko kale ko dinyo kueta duma.
Okay. And even if the baby is presenting with his bottom down, some of those babies, depending on the mother and depending on the care provider's comfort delivering a baby butt first, that's called a breech baby. Some of those babies can be born in a butt down position.
Coming for Polenko, another good, ni uncle Nate, Ijola, or lacing order. Aquatuta coming Mialam Kule Maran Kul Tubatoro, Walla Kulukuna, Jatakin Kola, as a Uluno, a payen.
Okay, and while that's not ideal, it's not what we want. About 4% of babies will present with their butt down and labor. 4%. Assalamu alaikum, Amani baby. Assalamu alaikum. Oh, there's another one today. We have two.
Okay, yes. Alaikum. Akabi vole anaranunko omake kutumialanko lafri walla barbutum aku kemo kunu hilla nani okake dinne walla minalanko orkana isin walla walla kana yuwalla.
So most babies will present head down on their own.
Ako dinne dolu olbe tale faye ikumola takila ku
all right. If someone's baby is to be butt down, there are some exercises that can be done by the mother. If she realizes late in her pregnancy, if they examine her and they realize the baby is not presenting head down, there are exercises that moms can do to try to encourage the baby to flip.
Say that again, sorry.
If they determine, like in a prenatal visit, that her baby is not head down, butt down, there are exercises she can do to try to persuade her baby to flip. It may or may not work. There are some exercises that can be done to try to help baby turn around. It's not something to worry about until she's like past 37 weeks. Okay. Now, even with a head down baby, there are different ways that the baby can present.
Ako anaro nung ko dinu mi alam ko la mo be duma ako dinu woni mba fan tan la nyameng wala aka chandro ka nyameng sifal siata.
Okay, and so mainly we're looking at which direction is the back of the baby's head facing in relationship to the mother's spine.
Say it again.
We're looking at what direction, I should have had my doll, is the back of the baby's head facing in relationship to the mother's body.
Okay, ako memo kurusala wala ko kaji be ko dinu woni akumula fanna jumale be ba ma nyim balola.
Hold on, I've got a baby doll coming. So, so this is the mother's hips, right? Okay. And this is the back of the mother. I got to try to figure, everything's backwards in my camera. So I got to
No, it's fine. Yeah.
So what we want is we want a baby that's facing the back of his head, the front left of the mother.
Okay.
So we want a baby whose head is facing the front left of the mother.
Okay. Akami ko wala ko dino wala fa dino mi alam ko akunyi anyabtin di da wala ko anyatin mara karola dino mi alam ko anyabtin di wala.
Because during birth, if the baby comes into the pelvis in this position, the widest part of the baby is his shoulders, and it's coming in diagonally to the pelvis, and the widest part of the pelvis is the diagonal dimension.
Say that again.
Okay, so you can see the baby's shoulders are facing diagonal to the pelvis. They're not straight. Okay, they're not straight on to the pelvis, right? So they're not straight on. They're diagonal. Okay?
Yeah.
And this is the widest part of the baby, the shoulders, right? This is the widest part. And if you look at the pelvis, the widest part of the pelvic opening is this diagonal dimension. So when the baby's coming in that direction, the baby's entering the pelvis in the widest diagonal. His shoulders are coming in the widest diagonal. So the widest part of the baby is entering the widest part of the pelvis.
Okay. Kami wala ko komi lafta dini wani kami ko ma tra la mara karola akami wala ko dini wala balo damina ko la fanuta wala tra bularing ba mala teñin na la fanu ngoti ba yelo ko wala mu tar nyaade mi yalan ko lafta dini wala tra wala nya.
And then when the baby's head passes through, he's going to turn and his shoulders will line up with the rest of the body. Okay, so the baby's going to make a rotation through the pelvis. The main thing I want you to focus on, Brother Sheikh, about is he's going to make a 15-degree turn to go through the pelvis. 15 degrees, okay? Turn to go through the pelvis, okay?
Ako me mola dini wanya bina yele malale ka bunya dele tanelu lo nyinto wala ka tembe baylo ko wani ba ma yin teñin ye tembe.
Some babies want to come into the pelvis with the back of their head facing the back of the mother. Facing the back of the mom. That's going to cause a longer and harder labor. Because the back of the baby's head is hard against the back of her spine, she's going to have a lot of back pain in labor. So she might have what we call a back labor, a lot of pain in her back during her labor.
So Karo, you know, kumanyimbe kosulo nyinga bolo bala ibajela ko o kaminza wolen ko eka ko dimo wala tedim akasia nibe tingoyin kon.
And this baby, rather than making a 15-degree turn, has to make a 180-degree turn to be born. So you can imagine if he has to turn all the way around, that's going to take longer and it's going to hurt more.
Yes.
Ako ibayro dino wala ile manyanyi akayele male kemin tallu yele moyinto bari ko abinya fay na ile ma nyala kamurumuru isaje ko asina wudunu.
Now, there's nothing that we can do to guarantee the baby is in the best position, but there are some things that we can do to help encourage that.
There's nothing we can do?
to guarantee a certain position, but there are certain things we can do to help encourage it.
Ako maro soto wala man maro soto kaje ko dino nyimbe tarra nyame barbudu inse kudol keno kaje ko o kuwoni nyin abitatara nyanyen ka o samanan wala ka silodi wala obina nyame.
But for example, we want the baby to come into the pelvis facing the left side of the mother, not the right, because if he faces the right, he usually turns all the way around, right? All the way. So that's really a long journey. But if he turns in the left, starts in the left, he doesn't turn so far. So one of the things we can do is we can sleep on our left side. Sleeping on our left side gives the baby better oxygen supply, and it also encourages the baby to be a left-sided baby, which is what we want.
Ako unsa minkeno wo kulo kono kaje ko dino nyinga ena tonkong la ole ga kawnya le bama teslo nyina tonkong la olem ko kela imarakan bajela ko dino nyin abe fonyo sot la nyama adu fana bina o marakarola na bina.
Okay. Now hold on a second. I'm trying to type. When we know that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam encouraged us to sleep on our right side. We know that the Prophet said, try to sleep on your right. But remember, he never said it was haram to sleep on the left, right? And in fact, if you have a nightmare, you're supposed to sit up, you're supposed to, make dua, you're supposed to roll to the other side. So we know that sleeping on either side is halal. And in the case of pregnancy, you actually get better oxygenation and you get, a better position for the baby on your left side. Not to mention the fact that it's very painful when you're heavily pregnant to sleep on your right side because the baby will squish the maternal liver. And when the mom's liver is squished, she's uncomfortable. So most moms tend to sleep on the left side anyways. So left-sided sleeping in pregnancy makes sense. It is not haram. It's halal to do so. And in fact, I believe that, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is kind of encouraging us anyways in the sense that it doesn't feel comfortable to sleep on the left side when we're pregnant. I mean, on the right side. Sorry, it doesn't feel comfortable to sleep on the right side when we're pregnant.
Akami volen ko ako alon ko kila salon ko ay shunto kaje ko nga la bulu bakaro kam akami volen ko marafa na kila ro mantron walla man ko kuti mena ko kuja walla ko waramru wala akami volen ko ni musota da fa kono kuliyata kila bulu bakan o kamin ke volen ko aka musola sundingo nyin akole ndino kadeta wala kam mi alan ko aka dimo yin sab do sai ni be tada fo kuliyata wala kono mari wala kila mara nyin kan wala so ne bulu anno aka dino yin aka fonyo dial.
Okay. Another thing is we can spend time in a more forward position. If we spend time, like when we're sitting, if we would sit in a more forward position than laying back and putting our feet up, then we're more likely to have a baby who faces the front of the mother instead of the back of the mother. Because when mother spends a lot of time lying back, the back of her head is heavy and the baby ends up in the backwards position. So she likes to sit back in a chair, put her feet up. She's more likely to have a baby whose head is facing the back than if she spends time sitting in forward positions where the back of the baby's head is forward and she ends up in a more forward-facing position. Okay, does that make sense? So we don't want to spend a lot of time laying on our back, putting our feet up in the air. Spend more time in forward-leaning positions.
Okay, if I understand that right. So you mean you don't want to be lying most of the time on your back like that, so putting your feet up, so you want to be,
you don't want to be like reclining and all comfy and laying back, because then the baby ends up on his back. So you want to just be in a more forward sitting position where your hips are more forward, so that your baby also ends up in a forward position, inshallah. There's no guarantee, of course, but we want to try to encourage that baby to be in a forward position as much as possible.
So akami folen ko ako komen katre la kay ko kan isingo katra ka kesando e baje ko kadi no nya kaminga ka asamana nyatlin walla mi anan ko imalati wala barsa ila ka ko mi di woni nga isa siri nyala mi anan ko le nyato ti ba ko ala taranyanyi usatra wo nyama nyala ko nyato.
Okay. All right. So we can never guarantee what position the baby's going to be in, but those are some of the things. I want to go on to one other thing really quickly, but I want to acknowledge brother. Who is this? Aram Jamil Malal said good info about sleeping positions after which week is sleeping on the left side beneficial. Once you're heavily pregnant, in the early pregnancy it doesn't really matter, but when you start to get bigger, second, especially end of second, heading into third trimester is where it really matters. Before that, the baby's doing so much moving, it doesn't matter much. But towards the later pregnancy is when we're talking about. That's when it matters. So that's a good question. So do you want to answer that question?
Yeah, akamin folem ko yinka yininka roke watu jumalem ko akumata ka ila dudala akumata kamin folem ko ikono laban. How many weeks will that be, in your pregnancy?
We're talking like 30 plus weeks. I mean, the mother will know anyways, because when she sleeps on her right, it'll become so uncomfortable. It's almost like her body is telling her, get that baby off my liver, move over to the left. So most moms will feel discomfort on the right at some point, and when they're heavily pregnant.
Okay. Akami volem ko ako ba ma fo balo ba kalam tala kadun ko nyela ba jela ko sunno ye ba jela ko be detela kadu go dinu kala wala kam. Ako sa akakenya me wala nyele mara kai kaje ko la ka sone ya ko kola. So e balo fo ba tan lela.
And the last thing I want to talk about is the importance of the strength of the pelvic floor muscles, the muscles at the bottom of the pelvis that support all of the internal organs, support the baby. So I'm talking about the strength of the pelvic floor muscles.
So akami volem ko tela sulo mialan ko ala semboñin te sulo ni na semboñin kabina diamra wol.
Because when the baby is being born, they're going to come to, where's my hand? There it is. There we go. When the baby's being born, it's going to come to the pelvic floor, and it has to pass through those muscles. Those muscles have to open up and let the baby come through.
Kami volen ko kanu tenyim ala suloñin wala ala fasol min biye fo yele so kaje ko dinu way nawla wala semboñin wala bambang jingo kumata.
And when the baby hits the pelvic floor, there's going to be some resistance. It's not just going to fall out. There's going to be some resistance when the baby runs into the pelvic floor.
Akoni no de no tambila tela fasol ni iba ko ako balango do be sodlale bare butu atajolo no nyama.
What I want is a strong pelvic floor so that when the baby's head hits the pelvic floor, he's going to have resistance. So his chin is going to go on his chest. And that's going to make the smallest part of the baby's head. That's called a well-flexed head. That's going to make the smallest part of the baby's head present for the birth, right? We want the smallest part of the baby's head to be presenting. So we want the chin on chest. And the chin goes on chest when the pelvic floor is really strong. So you get this happening before the baby's born, right? I want this going on. So I want a strong pelvic floor that causes the baby's head to go on his chin to go on his chest, so he's well flexed.
Okay, coming for len ko dino nyin ako te nyin kaje ko ala faso nyin way bamba ko ma da bari ko dino nyin na te bari ko mi faso nyin balan do man di bari ko dino nyin e bari ko abe kawanya bambo nyinga abe lala sisoka nala ta sisoka muna ka kunyin na dami yana ko doyata ubayile ko sina ka ko dinno nyin ala kumin damen doyata follow setam.
Okay, and this is important because if the pelvic floor is weak, then what we get is the baby's head comes to the pelvic floor, and instead his head stays straight because his head is stronger than her pelvic floor, and it will drag the pelvic floor. And the biggest part of the baby's head will then present. So you'll end up having more likelihood of the mother having tears in her vaginal area because the biggest part of the baby's head is what's coming first rather than a well-flexed head where you have the smallest part of the baby's head coming first. Okay, so we need the pelvic floor basically needs to be stronger than the baby's neck. We want the pelvic floor to be stronger than the baby's neck.
So kami volen tela nyin fasolu ola bambang kaje ko we bambang dinno kamati ba ko ase kamonyin asamu tanu kayele mandi ba ko kunyin na warma banyin o kana na dun sola uludda no wote o kamin ke aka la farul sabu o ko ka sola musuyani aka la fala ka warande ka fengo do kije iko kolya ko do so jewla aka ba nyama ka lafa.
All right, and we have a question: how can we improve pelvic floor muscles? And yes, Kegel exercises is your answer. You want to be doing your Kegel exercises, your pelvic floor exercises, to strengthen that part of the body.
How do you do that?
So most women know how to do that, but it's a squeezing and releasing of the pelvic floor. So just like when we go to the toilet to urinate, we can stop and start the flow of urine. That's the kind of muscle tension and release that we're talking about. Tensing and releasing the muscles of the pelvic floor.
Okay. So akami vole mu ni ajibe isala jala motola eka jala motobula nyambia ni ka sabana yala o ekaje ko uleka fasonyin aka solonga kayela ko kobi ko ke eka fu komi jala motola ako uleka fasonyin aka bambandi ka dema asa bamba ako wole mu iko fana mamma wole nyam.
Okay. Is there anything else you want to add to this discussion? I'm trying to keep it as basic as possible to make it easier to translate, but do you want to add anything else, Salama?
Well, I just want to go back to reiterate that birth is active and that there's a lot of activity happening between mom and baby that we cannot measure. That we
call it a mom and baby dance.
Yes, the mom and baby dance. Yes, AMANI Birth, we call it the mom and baby's dance, and it's like a tango between them. And one of the things,
the baby does play a part in his own birth, and the baby does have a role in rotating that pelvis.
Kami vole mu akala Afrika senga kaje ku bama ni ndingo nyina Kenya nyin wala kumaya korfa ko ga vole tulama ni kole bama ni ndingo la dongo bari ko ndingo nyinga aka kuja mala ka mini jama ka kije ndingo nyina uloto.
I'm going to interrupt you for a minute. This is another reason why we prefer moms not to be medicated during birth, because if they're medicated, then baby is medicated. And if baby's medicated, they don't make a good rotation through the pelvis. So, babies don't rotate well who are medicated. So the best births are the ones where moms are unmedicated. That means that mom is alert, she's active, baby is therefore also alert and active, and so they can work together much better than when the baby is, medicated because mom's medicated.
Kami volen ko leaje Ibrahim kunyi ga susun to kakaje ko e borota wala nebe wato mebe wuluka wala ko kana boro be bayila ko ni ama na boro suru don dingo nyim fana ba kala bayila ko oka ila kala moto nyin aka wala tara o bayila ba ni mam borota bayila ko ibetara kun ring ibetara kala mutaring dino fana betara kala mutara be betara bayila ko ila mamma nyin abi tarra nyala mialan ko abi tarra ke kul dina ka sino ibalo itra sino ro wanya wala dino fana itra sino.
And I will also say that the mom's position, we talk about that before, the mom's birth position and labor position should be upright, facilitate the baby's movement, giving the baby the space to be able to navigate, to get into the pelvis properly. If the mother's laying flat on her back, the mom's hips and pelvis are not able to expand as much. It decreases the amount of space that it can expand to let the baby enter it properly. And it's a good conversation to have with your care provider towards the end, when you're getting closer to your due date, when you're going in and they're assessing you, to ask them, where's my baby lying? What way? So you can kind of have an idea of what kind of labor you might have. Because if the baby is sitting towards the back of the mother, she should expect a lot more. And that means she should definitely stay off of her back, which it was not going to be possible for her to lay on her back anyway, because it's going to be extremely painful if the baby is laying on her back. So she should be in a more forward positioning, standing position, kneeling position to help facilitate that labor.
Kami ko wala mo di wala tara nyati ako kome ni la tubato lalo wala mila ko mara lila kono ma kolla ko min ka kala mutai di mo be nyane kuma atale are ba ila ko na ni di woni ako tingo fama min kuma wala ko tingo manya tarra nyala barna manke ibalo itra lori wala ko yatra sirim wala yatra jongo to wasifa le kan e betarra wolde ba ko ila te nyinga se yele no ba ko dinu nyinga se keno soto kada kadu naro ni la ka soronne o ka keno nyanya da min soto la aka wala do yandi do ka je ko yitara la to mi ko balo do lori o keno di dinu nyina kumal ako ka lon ko dinu nyina mantra lari ko ka mata le bari sa lon ko ese milikeno kama ikanyumi for ba ko o sebbo woto kakara kulike o be kuma bare no wonte paddi mu jamal soto teñin ni dingo be dare teñin ka.
And I just want to point out that upright birth positions are evidence-based. So if a mom is talking to her doctor about, in labor, I'd like to have an upright birth position, and the doctor pushes back some, there's plenty of evidence you can share with an open-minded care provider to let them know that, what I'm asking you for is what's evidence-based. And hopefully there's care providers out there that are supporting that anyways. And if not, then, shop around for one that's willing to support you in the way that you want to give birth, undrugged and unmedicated. And well, I guess that's the same thing. Unmedicated and upright and active is the best way for women to give birth, as long as there's no complications.
So that upright position, will it be sitting or,
it's up to the mother. She could be squatting, she'd be on her hands and knees. She might be in a bit of a sitting position, but that's not the best because then she's on her bum. So,
right.
Most moms will probably be more like hands and knees or squatting. That's the most common that you'll see. She might be standing, but usually it's hands and knees, squatting. Those are the two most common.
Yeah.
Tara nyamin da go ganyin gale balo kata lori nyadi la ko wala ko jaba e ba la ko e betarra jimrin ne wala yetra bulo yetre kumbali moto sifa ko mi kata jimi kaje ko e balo nyin sar yele nyamin wala kumata e ba la ko ka di maroke keno nyin nale wulu nyayin.
All right, we're at the 27-minute mark, so I want to cut it off because it's long. So is there anything else you want to add?
I just want to add, this is why we need doulas and childbirth educators, AMANI doulas and childbirth educators in the Gambia, because envision this, a woman having the level of support and encouragement from someone who's educated to help her to prepare, to get properly prepared, to do the exercises. In AMANI Birth, we talk about the importance of activity, being active for both baby and mom. So having someone, sometimes mothers, they need that encouragement, they need that boost from someone.
And the guidance.
Yeah, and guidance, exactly, to do things to benefit them and their baby. And it's really important to have this level of support. So I want to encourage people, to register, to sign up, take the course, so that we can begin to improve the maternal health in the Gambia. Because women need this support. They need this information. They need this knowledge, because knowledge saves lives.
It does. And I always say AMANI teachers and doulas are kind of like tour guides for birth. They help you on that journey. They make sure, whether this is your first baby or your 10th, having someone to guide you through makes a big difference. And I will say that we have, I think, about 10 people that have shown interest. I think it's 10 or so that have shown interest in the Gambia. So we want to continue to grow that number. And then we can work on a special class for the women that are in the Gambia. They can then go out and support other women.
Thank you both so much.
Thank you, Jazakallah. We really appreciate your translating. And remember, for the people that are watching, to share, like, Get this around to other people in your community. You can also get the free book down here, AMANI Birth free sequence book. That's available to read online for anyone for free who's interested. So we'd like to.
But usually I'm not able to see this link. I check it, but I don't. Usually when I go on the Facebook, I don't see it. Is it because?
Okay, I'll type it in the chat box.
Yeah, I think that because I keep looking for it, but I couldn't find it. So yeah,
okay,
it'll be good. All right.
Right now. All right, you guys take care, and I will see you again inshallah in next week. We're continuing.
Inshallah. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Assalamu alaikum.
Okay. Alaikum.